Posse back in Nation. I'm Tom, and we're talking about predictions for what? Football game.
Grossi, Posse, Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Podcast, the podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. The channel will be in good hands when I'm dead, Grossi. And today, as was said before, we are going to be talking about some Green Bay Packers football. Going to be predicting the 2025 to 2026 NFL season. Of course, the schedule is out. The order in which we know our opponents is set. And now it's time to get a little crazy. And so later in the offseason, like we do every single year, I'll do the ceiling and floors for each division. We'll go through each team's schedule and all that great, wonderful stuff. That'll probably happen in a month or so. Again, I have to move across the country, so bear with me. But today we are going to be talking about the Green Bay Packers. And now a couple of things that are right off the gate before we break down the individual matchups. The Packers finally getting a home week one opener, and they hadn't had one since 2018. The other team by the longest drought was the Eagles. They had gone since 2019. And of course, it's a week one opener at Lambeau against the Detroit frackin' Lions, which, oh, that's going to be a game. But the other thing that stands out to me immediately is, of course, that week 5 bye, which I despise because it is so early. And by the time the season gets rolling, and while the Packers do have a couple of Thursday night games and they're going to get a little bit more of a break, having that week 5 bye with the injuries that come with the season just usually doesn't gel well. But hey, we got to find a way to persevere. And so with that being said, let's jump into the schedule, starting with our week 1 matchup against the Detroit frackin' Lions. Now, I did a video last week talking about if I think the Packers got better during this offseason with the draft and free agency, and I think we came to the consensus that that offense at bare minimum should be better. They got more protection for Jordan Love, they got more receivers to throw to, and overall, that offense, which already was really damn good last year, should take another step, especially with Jordan Love having some more time to throw, being fully healthy, and hopefully some receivers catch the ball this season. The question mark, of course, is going to be on the defense. Is Jair Alexander going to be in that secondary? Is our pass rush going to get better? All that and more next time on Packers, Why Do You Make Me Cry, Z? And of course, the big problem with the Packers last year was within their division. They almost were swept by the entire division. Their only win coming against the Chicago Bears after a blocked field goal.
Just the tip, though.
And without that, yeah, it would have been really ugly. And I think that this season, that is going to be a focal point because while they did improve on their record from the previous season to last season, they did not get better within the division. And starting off against the defending division champs, it's going to be one hell of a game. Now, of course, with the Lions, there are going to be some question marks in terms of they have some new coordinators. Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are both gone. And so we'll kind of see what identity this team is going to take on. Aiden Hutchinson, this will be his first NFL action, or at least his first regular season action in quite some time. And who knows, maybe a little bit slow to start. So maybe the Packers are getting the Lions at a fortunate time. Unfortunately for the Packers, though, the Lions have had the Packers number for quite a bit. While we did have that amazing Thanksgiving game a couple of years ago, the Lions, yeah, they've been beating up on the good old Green Bay Packers. So while I would hope that this week 1 matchup is going to favor the Packers, there have been a lot of Lions fans in Lambeau Field as of late. So if you could stop selling your tickets, that would be great. There's still people waiting on the season ticket list, I don't know, for the past 40 years. So if you want to just, keep your tickets or sell them to other Packers fans, that would be great. But ultimately, when it comes down to Lions, both for this and the Thanksgiving game, I do see the Packers splitting with the Lions at best because the Lions are going to be a very competitive football team. Their offense, they can run the ball at you. Of course, Jared Goff, he had a pretty nice season when he wasn't throwing interceptions in the division round and against the Texans. But ultimately, what's going to make the Lions really good this year is that pass rush. If Aiden Hutchinson comes back fully healthy, they are going to be a problem because that pass rush suffered when he was not on the field. We'll see what happens with Zadarius Smith if they wind up re-signing him to a short deal. But ultimately, I think they're going to split. I'm going to give the Packers the week 1 win at Lambeau. I might be a little optimistic here, but I think that offense should be able to get the job done. And if that secondary, hopefully with Jair Alexander, is looking good, maybe, just maybe, Xavier McKinney walks away with an interception or two off Jared Goff. However, at Ford Field, I'll give the advantage to the Lions. We'll have a better sense of the identities of each each team by the time Thanksgiving rolls around. But I'm going to say it's a split between the Lions and the Packers, with the Packers getting that week 1 win. Then week 2, you got the Washington Commanders. Oh, hey there, Wildflower. So after opening week 1 against a division rival, it is a quick turnaround for the first Thursday night football game of the year on Amazon, because technically the season opener is on NBC, but it is on Thursday, but we're just splitting hairs here. Against the Commanders, the team that beat the Detroit Lions in the division round last year. Jaden Daniels, a dynamic quarterback. The Commanders were very busy during the offseason, making sure that offensive line was a bit better, making a big trade for Laramie Tunsil. They went out and got Deebo Samuel, who, again, not really moving the meter for me. And for the Commanders defense, while they did mix things around in free agency, I'm very curious to see how good that defense is going to be. I think they overachieved a bit last year. That secondary was a problem at times, but if they're able to make that pass rush even better, the Commanders are going to be a pretty damn balanced team. And this is going to be a tough game. The good news is that this is being played in Lambeau, so that should be an advantage for the Packers in primetime. I imagine there's going to be a ton of green and gold there. But ultimately, I have the Packers winning this game, but this could go either way. If Jane Daniels gets outside the pocket, and we know the Packers' history with mobile QBs is not the best, this could definitely be a problem. And Scary Terry is always going to be an issue for any secondary. But ultimately, I think this Packers offense should be dynamic enough that they'll be able to move the ball against this Washington defense. However, you definitely cannot sleep on them, and I would not be surprised if the Commanders got a win here, but I will have the Packers starting off at 2-0, but this is one of those games that I have circled that on a short week, I would not be surprised whatsoever if the Commanders were able to take the victory. Then week 3, it's the first away game for the Packers against the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Cleveland Browns, there's some things going on with Cleveland. Their defense, I still think, should be pretty good. Their offense, we don't know who's going to be quarterback. Are you going to throw Joe Flacco back there? We're going to see Shadur Sanders. We're going to see Dylan Gabriel. Who knows? Hey, maybe even Kenny Pickett. But ultimately, I don't think the Browns are expected to be insanely good this year. So while it is going to be a tough road environment in Cleveland, I do think the Packers will be able to pick up a win here. And I think this is going to be incredibly important because, one, not only is it the first game against the AFC North, but secondly, if everything goes wrong, the Packers could be 0-2 heading into this game. So they're going to need to pick up a win. So I'm a bit happier that it is against a team that the Packers should be able to take down. So I had the Packers getting the win here. And if everything goes right, they would be 3-0. Then the Green Bay Packers find themselves in prime time once again on Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys, being played in Dallas, which is pretty much Lambeau South, since we always win there and won a Super Bowl there. But this should be a fantastic game. And the Cowboys, I know there's some folks that are sleeping on the Cowboys because obviously they did not have a good year last year, but going and getting George Pickens and getting a true wide receiver 2 to complement CeeDee Lamb could do wonders for their offense. It would also help if they had a run game. On top of that, spending their first pick on an offensive lineman to make that O-line even better for protection for Dak and also just to create some running lanes. And Cowboys fans are hoping that they actually have a pass rush this year. Drafting Ezeraku, I think, was a great move here, and if they're able to get after the quarterback, the Cowboys are going to be a pretty fun team this year. And this should be a hell of a game. I could see this being a high-scoring game. The Packers are going to need to lean on the run because the Dallas Cowboys have not been the best at stopping the run. So Josh Jacobs is going to definitely be needed here. And this is another game that could go either way. I think the Packers have an edge here because I do think their defense is better than the Cowboys. And as I mentioned, if the Packers offense is able to take another step, they should be really damn good this year on that side of the ball. So I'm going to have the Packers get a win here, but I also recognize that this one could go either way at all. It could be a shootout on Sunday night, and hopefully that's going to benefit the Packers, but who knows? Maybe the Cowboys will finally get their revenge. And so with week 5 being the bye week, taking a look at those first 4 games, 3 out of those 4 games are going to be difficult. Of course, the Cleveland Browns, they could cause problems, but I'm kind of leaving them to the side right now. And the Packers theoretically could be 1-3 if the Commanders, Lions, and Cowboys give them problems. On the flip side, I'd be very content if the Packers were 3-1 at this point, because I think the Lions, Commanders, and Cowboys games are going to give them some problems because you're going against some quality teams. So while I do think the Packers could start 4-0, if they started 3-1 at this point, I'd be a happy camper. Because after the bye, things are not going to be easy as they take on the Cincinnati Bengals. Their defense, nothing really to write home about, but holy crap, their offense, one of the best in the NFL, and you could have an absolute shootout between these two teams. The last time that these two teams played, it came down to the wire. You had all those missed field goals, and I would not be surprised if there's another classic. Now, being played at Lambeau, I think, of course, will give the Packers a little bit of an edge, but I think the Packers are going to be able to put up a ton of points against this defense. Now, looking at it from the other perspective, the Packers are going to be faced with an amazing test against a really good offense. And if they're able to slow down Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, I think that's going to go a long way to determining what the identity of this defense is going to be this year. Joe Burrow at times has had many problems just staying upright because his offensive line just goes, oh no, come right through. And if the Packers pass rush is a bit better this year, that could be one of the keys of the game. And so here, I think week 6, you're going to have a shootout at Lambeau. This is another game that could go either way. Because the Packers defense is better, I am going to go with the Packers to get the win here. I know you're saying, Tom, you're probably a homer at this point, but that's totally fine. I definitely could see this game going either way, especially if the Bengals are able to put up a ton of points quickly. I just think the Packers offense is going to be able to do what they want against the Bengals D. And on top of that, if Xavier McKinney gets involved and that secondary is able to contain Joe Burrow a little bit, I like the Packers' chances here against Kitty Goes Meow. Then in week 7, you got another battle in the desert as the Packers take on the Arizona Cardinals. Now, there have been some classic matchups between these two teams in the past, whether it's been the playoffs against Kurt Warner, or whether you had Hail Marys to Jeff Janis. These games are usually pretty darn good. And for the Cardinals, I've had them as my dark horse team, I don't know, for the past 3 years, it feels like. But the moves that they've made on defense, I am a huge fan of. Their defense and getting additional pass rushers really excites me. Their offense, however, leaves a little bit to be desired. While I do like their run game, I do love McBride. Marvin Harrison Jr. definitely needs to be better this season. And Kyler Murray, I feel like fans are kind of mixed on him. They're just waiting for him to take that next step or at least elevate the team a bit more. And ultimately, I think that's going to be a major factor if the Cardinals are a great team this year. Now, I do think this is going to be a very, very good game. I do have the Packers getting a win here. However, I would not be surprised if this comes down to a last-second field goal or is a very, very tight game. As I said, I do think the Cardinals have made some great moves, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and Kyler Murray being a mobile QB. You never know with the Green Bay Packers. But ultimately, I think the Packers should be able to take care of business in the desert and hopefully getting another win under their belt. Then, Sunday Night Football beckons once again as the Packers take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this is a very difficult game to predict because it's the middle of May right now, and we don't know who the quarterback is going to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I will say this regardless of who their quarterback is going to be, just like the Cardinals, every single time the Packers and Steelers meet, it is always a classic game. Not just the Super Bowl, but there have been some amazing games over the years throughout the regular season, and I have a feeling this could be another one, especially if one Aaron Rodgers is going to be the Steelers quarterback. Now, being played in Pittsburgh, you know that crowd is going to be hot, and if the Aaron Rodgers is at the helm, I would not be surprised the Packers wind up losing this game. You do worry about the defense of the Steelers, but their offense, with the addition of DK Metcalf, even though they lost George Pickens, it's really going to come down to how's that run game with Jalen Warren and who the hell is their quarterback. Now, as of right now, if it's Mason Rudolph, I think the Packers win. However, if it is Aaron Rodgers, I would not be surprised if there's a little bit more fire in his gut.
Did you have fire in your gut?
But ultimately, I do think the Packers in a classic should be able to get this win. Unless it's Aaron Rodgers, then it could go either way, and I'm a little bit less confident about it. But as of right now, with Mason Rudolph, I think the Packers can do it. Then, week 9. There's no more Joe Barry, Bryce Young. Okay? You shouldn't have an amazing game. They're going up against the Carolina Panthers, this time at Lambeau Field. The last time that these two teams played, it was not pretty. Joe Barry made Bryce Young look like Steve Young, and the Panthers almost won that game. Now, the Panthers are an ascending team. I like what they're doing on defense. Their offense, they should actually have weapons this year. And if Bryce Young is able to make those strides as many expect him to, this could be a competitive game. Ultimately, I do still think the Packers are a better team and a more well-developed team at this point. I still think the Panthers are on the up and up, and while I do think this is going to be competitive, I do think the Packers should be able to take care of the Panthers at home, and hopefully we don't have a repeat of when Joe Barry was our defensive coordinator. Then in week 10, circle this one, you got another primetime game on Monday Night Football against the reigning, defending Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, and the Eagles are also coming off a bye. Now, of course, the Packers were eliminated from postseason contention last year against the Philadelphia Eagles. It was unfortunately a game marred by mistakes, injuries, and ultimately the Eagles won, and Saquon Barkley was nice and he slid instead of scoring another touchdown. But the Packers were able to hold their own against the defending Super Bowl champs for quite a while, and being played at Lambeau, I think this is going to be a classic game. And considering this is week 10, this is going to be a great litmus test to see where are both of these teams at. The Eagles are expected to be incredibly good this year. The Packers are expected to be a contending team. However, I do think the Eagles are going to take this one. Their defense is just really damn good. And on the other side of the ball, good guy. Jalen Hurts is a problem. A.J. Brown's a problem. Devontae Smith is a problem. Oh, yes. And Saquon Barkley is a problem. So while the Packers' run defense was significantly better, Saquon was still able to do pretty darn well against the Packers in the postseason, and he could have some more success here. And so ultimately, I am going to have the Packers dropping to the Eagles here. And if the Packers win, well, then I'll be the happiest damn person on the planet. Then another NFC East showdown in Week 11 as they go to MetLife to not only deal with whoever the hell their quarterback is going to be, but also the field itself. The New York Football Giants, there you go, I didn't say New Jersey this time. Their defense has been making some big strides after taking Xavier McKinney from them, which was... Thank you again, Giants. Phenomenal. They have rebuilt that secondary. Their pass rush should be really good with the addition of Abdul Carter. It was already pretty good last year. The offense is the only questionable aspect about this team. While they do have some playmakers like Neighbors, we don't know who their quarterback is going to be. Is it Russell Wilson? Is it Jameis Winston? Is it going to be Jackson Dart? Lots of question marks here. And for the Giants, while I do think they'll be an improved team from last year, especially on the defensive side of the ball, I think there's too many questions about the offense to really give them an edge over the Packers right now. So I am going to have the Packers get the win here in Week 11, coming off what I think might be a loss in Week 10, getting back in the win column, and the Packers should be feeling pretty good. Unless it's another Monday night disaster against Tommy DeVito, which in that case... I'm going to cry. Then in Week 12, after not playing an NFC North rival since Week 1, you got the purple incarnation of Satan. Now, let's talk about Satan for a hot second. Of course, won 14 games last year, swept the Packers. It was great. It was so great. And then got their ass kicked by the Rams. That was better. I did like that one. And for the Vikings, I really like what they did in the offseason, making that offensive line better, especially the interior offensive line. You saw how much you needed that, or at least how much Sam Darnold needed that against the Rams in that wild card matchup. Their defense under Brian Flores has been so damn good. And of course, on the offensive side of the ball, they have so many weapons, and Aaron Jones coming back on an extended contract. It should still be pretty damn good. Now, of course, the biggest question mark is J.J. McCarthy. And so it's almost impossible to rank the Vikings right now, because I do think the team around him is really damn good. And if J.J. McCarthy is anywhere near where Sam Darnold was last season, they should be a damn good team and should be contending. I do believe in KOC. I do think that he is the coach there to get the best out of McCarthy. So I think it's fair to say the Packers might split with the Vikings. I'll give the Packers a win at Lambeau Field at Week 12. However, I'll have them lose that Week 18 matchup in Minnesota. A lot of this is going to depend on the play of J.J. McCarthy, as he's basically a rookie here with no NFL experience except that preseason game. However, I do think this Vikings team is good enough that they'll be able to knock off some opponents regardless of how their QB does. It's just going to be a matter of, can J.J. McCarthy elevate them? So because of that, I had the Packers win Week 12 and lose Week 18. Week 13, the Packers are playing on Thanksgiving once again against the Lions. We already talked about that. This is the game I'm going to have the Packers lose and splitting with the Lions, which brings us to Week 14 against the Chicago Bears. Ugh. Here we go. The Bears, they are a very interesting team. Not only do they now have the Pope on their side, but on top of that, their offseason, I don't know what Bears fans not happy about it. Besides the draft, I know there's some Bears fans that are not happy about that. But let's talk about it. Caleb Williams had a pretty solid year last year. Yes, he got sacked a lot, but you can blame the offensive line and also him being a rookie on that. And while Caleb Williams did not want to play for the Bears coming out of the draft, he ultimately decided, hey, this is the place I want to be. And now he's coming into his second season, and expectations are pretty damn high. Not only did they get the hottest free agency in coaching, which was Ben Johnson, but I actually really like that they got Dennis Allen as their defensive coordinator. As a head coach, maybe Dennis Allen wasn't the best, but that man could call a defense, and that defense should be pretty darn good for Chicago. Looking at the offensive side of the ball, there's plenty of weapons for Caleb Williams. They made sure that offensive line was better this upcoming season, so he should have more protection. Now, of course, the Bears did beat the Packers in that last regular season game. I know Malik Willis came in, but you got to give them credit where credit is due. They ended the streak. Here, I'm going to give the Bears the best compliment possible. I think we're going to split with them. I do think it's possible the Packers wind up splitting with each of their division rivals, which would still be an improvement from last year. And so because of that, I'll have the Packers win Week 14 at Lambeau and lose that Week 16 game, which is a Saturday game in Chicago. I do think if the Bears are going to be good, this is going to be the season where we're going to see it. And if not, well, then Chicago has larger problems. But ultimately, while Ben Johnson's a new head coach in Chicago, I do think that mentality he's bringing along with him, building in the trenches, is ultimately going to serve them well. And because of that, I have the Packers going 1-1 with the Chicago Bears. Then Week 15. It's the GPS Bowl between the Denver Broncos and the Green Bay mother-loving Packers. Now, besides Perna and I streaming this game, this is a very interesting matchup. The last time that Jordan Love went to Denver, it did not end so well, as the Packers unfortunately lost to the Broncos, and I lost all my pride as well. Heading into this year, the Broncos are expected to have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and I think if there's a defense that's going to slow down the Packers, the Broncos are probably going to be one of them. Now, Bo Nix coming into his second year had a pretty good season last year. Of course, they made the playoffs, but what the Broncos really needed last year was not only a tight end, but they needed a run game. They got that with RJ Harvey in the draft, and they went and got Evan Ingram from the Jaguars. So ultimately, I think the Broncos are going to be a pretty damn good team, and they're going to be contending in the AFC West. Now, I actually have this as a loss for the Packers, and the reason being is because Denver is a tough place to play with the altitude, but on top of that, this defense, if they're able to keep this a low-scoring game, I think the Broncos have a decent chance of beating the Packers here. Especially if RJ Harvey is as advertised, they could be a bit of a problem. So I'm actually going to have the Packers lose this away game. I think it's just a tough place to play for the Packers. I think this defense they're going against is going to be really darn good. And hey, if Jordan Love is able to sling some touchdowns against that secondary, then I'm going to be feeling pretty damn confident this time of year. Week 16, I said they'd split with the Bears, which leaves us with Week 17. Going up against the Baltimore Ravens. Now, thank God this is being played in Lambeau, but this is going to be one hell of a game. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, that defense. This is going to be a phenomenal test just a couple weeks away from the playoffs, and I think will really prove what kind of team the Green Bay Packers are. Now, of course, at this point, we're all hoping the Packers are 15-0. They've won all these games, and they're just resting the last 2 weeks. But ultimately, I think this is going to be a classic, and this is a game that deserves to be in prime time. But going up against the Ravens is not going to be an easy task. The Packers usually struggle when they play against the Ravens. Hey, even when they played against Tyler Huntley last time, it was a struggle to win that football game. And so here, going up against Lamar and Derrick Henry, I do think the Packers are going to have a loss here. I think the AFC North just plays a different brand of football, but the Ravens in particular, they have a mobile quarterback, they have a bruising running back, and ultimately, I think that's tough for the Green Bay Packers to try and deal with. And so because of that, I have them losing to the other purple team. And as I mentioned before, Week 18, I had a loss against the Minnesota Vikings, splitting within the division, and so that would conclude the regular season. And so if my predictions are correct, the Green Bay Packers would have an 11-6 record with losses against each of their divisional opponents, splitting with them, so that'd be the Vikings, the Bears, the Lions, then they'd be losing against the Ravens, the Broncos, and the Eagles. And so ultimately, I think this is a pretty fair assessment. The other games that I do have circled, and again, who knows what's going to happen within the division, the Packers only won one of those games last year, but the games against the Commanders, Cowboys, and Bengals also stand out to me. That those can be some pretty tough games, and if those all go the other way, I could definitely see the Packers finishing with a 9-8 record if everything went wrong. Again, I think there's still some question marks with the secondary of the Packers. We'll see what happens with Jair Alexander, and of course the pass rush, but ultimately I feel pretty confident the Packers should be at least a 10-win team, somewhere in the middle there, up to 11, maybe even 12 wins if they're able to sneak away another victory against the Vikings or even the Bears. But let me know what you think down in the comments below about this schedule. It's not the easiest for the Packers, but the NFC North, they do not have the easiest schedule regardless. And while they do have some tough opponents, if the Packers are going to make it to the playoffs, they certainly are going to earn it. So let's hope they do. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. You know, I saw me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the Patreon and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.